Hi and welcome to Sustainable Profits. This is a place where sustainability and profits meet around the world. My name is Sasja Beslik and I've been working with this for over 25 years, doing investments all around the world in different sectors, different companies, trying to understand how sustainability meet profits, but also understand how this can make a really big change going forward. Today I will talk to you about three things I find very, very interesting. The first is related to political narrative around the world, and actually what does it mean for the people that are working in this space, and also people that want to understand where sustainability is heading, what are the trends, and also what we can see that politicians are doing in order to address some of these sustainability challenges that we are facing. The second point will be about how the investments are done and why sustainability in the investment context is not only important but also a prerequisite for creating long-term growth for many of the companies that we are investing in, and also many companies that are trying to address the challenges they are facing, not the less in the world that we are living in. And the third part will be about how and what kind of results are created by these investments around the world. Of course, all of this is in the context of sustainability profits, but also in the context of the world that we are living in today. And the first thing I would like to share with you is the political narrative. The political narrative is false. Sustainability is not costly, it's not hampering economic growth, and it's not creating sort of a subsidized economy. In most parts of the world, sustainability efforts in all sectors have been leading to more resilient business operations, more secure business operations, and far more independent business operations, which is something that, of course, politicians and political narrative is always trying to challenge. And what the politicians are all about. It's about status quo. It's about defending the old order. It's about protecting the vested interests that are currently in different parts of the world, very much channeled in the different sectors and industries. So, of course, you have to understand that sustainability as the underlying force of change, approach to investments, but also approach to build societies, is significantly challenging the status quo of the political system as much as the economic system. So political narrative, top-down narrative that we have heard about and we know about is really not true in terms of what sustainability means. So, and I give you an example on that, and I find it so interesting that this example is not taken up, because the bottom-up approach, which is represented by companies across the world in different sectors, in different parts of the world, is pointing in a completely different direction. The energy independency that is very much important going forward and very much related to renewable energy is the key thing that companies across the world are doing right now, which is completely opposite to political narrative that this is costly. Companies are investing more in renewable energy. They are investing more in independent sort of sources of energy so they can sustain their business operations. They are developing and trying to develop new sustainable products and services, and they are very much aware of the impact of climate change hitting their business operations. So, just to be clear on this one, the political narrative, however you view it, is not really related to bottom-up approach, which is represented by companies. And in private, when I meet companies, and I meet many of them, they will tell you this. They will tell you that resilience of their business operations is very much dependent in the core, on their ability to transform big parts of their business to become more sustainable. And it's not driven by virtue. This is again important. It's very important for people to understand. Companies are not selling virtue, they are supposed to sell value. And that's also one of the reasons why investments in sustainability so far have been characterized by virtue investing or virtue communication and not really by value adding and value communication. I will come to that in the next section. In the investment-related narrative, what is also very interesting is this disparity about what you hear and actually what you see. As an investor, I usually, when I meet companies, I try to understand in what way the sustainability efforts are linked to this business and how they are linked to their products and services. Now, if you look really at what companies are telling us about their sustainability work, it's a little less on products and services, actually very little about that, but it's a lot about communication, and it's a lot about 164 pages long sustainability reports that, to be honest, nobody reads, but they have to be published because there is regulation around this, and regulation in Europe and in the US is different. But of course, the regulation is creating the frameworks where where companies can somehow communicate to you and me and many others and the public what their efforts in sustainability are actually doing for their business. Now, there's a trick, and I want to share that with you. The trick is when you read these reports, and they are quite, comprehensive, 164 pages. There are different guidelines how they need to be reported, different data points, different types of information that you usually have difficulties to take in because you don't have a reference point, or you don't understand what's actually in the report, or you don't have a verification that it's actually true. The trick is to have a look in what the company is saying on their sustainability reporting and then compare that with what they are saying in their financial reporting. If there is a link between the core strategy on sustainability and the core strategy on the finance, then you have something that is becoming to be very, very interesting. Unfortunately, in many cases, my experience over the last 25 years is that the very few companies today are really doing that shift from sustainability into the finance and trying to combine their long-term and short-term priorities with the sustainability strategy they are running somewhere in behind. Now, one of the other insights in relation to this is, of course, the future of sustainability and investments, and also the place where sustainable profits meet. And that is the place that is very much called products and services, market segments, clients, and other type of commercial assets that company needs to utilize to actually get paid for sustainability. Now, sustainability critics have been pointing out that companies are greenwashing, that companies are not really changing their underlying business models, that it's just a sort of a furnace on something that is pretty much the same as it has been before. That has been changing, but it's still very much true. And the reason why it's true, it is because the companies are having a big difficulties, and I see that in my daily work, to link sustainability efforts to their products and services and actually showcase how they make money on this. When I meet the CEOs and CFOs around the world, the companies that I'm having a dialogue with, investing, looking at the ways how we can, deploy capital to change and make business work for them, to create sustainable profits, I rarely hear, and this is the question I ask, how do you make money on sustainability? And as long as companies are not able to explain to investors and also to their customers and clients exactly how this is changing the business model, we are going to have challenge going forward to showcase that sustainability is transformative power of the business, creating resilience and also creating profits going forward. Now, there are a lot of examples around the world that actually work, and one of the things that it's quite obvious, and you can see that, it is the latest research that has been done around the world about the commitment that sustainability corporates have. And the recent research out of the US is clearly indicating, despite all of the pushback from a political side, that over 60% of the CEOs are expecting to increase their efforts in this space, not because they have a virtue of doing that, not because they're morally obliged to do that, because their business models will simply require that kind of resilience. You cannot manage your complex supply chains, global supply chains, without thinking about physical impact of climate change. If you do that, then you have to be hedged in a way. You have to have some kind of knowledge that nobody else has, because the knowledge all of us have access to, including the people in the financial industry, is that insurance costs related to disruption of global supply chains is increasing, and it's going to probably increase 3 times more in the next 5 to 10 years. This have implication on how you source, what materials you buy, where your production is, how is that protected from a physical impact of climate change, not to talk about transformative or transition impact that is created by this across horizontally many different sectors. So if you are a business leader and if you work any organization that is producing products and services, selling them globally, even regionally, you have to start thinking about this not because it's a morally right thing to do, but because it makes a big difference for your cost base, your operational cost, but it also makes a big difference in what way you can make money on your products and services that will save energy, be recycled in a way that it's much smarter, much more efficient, and contribute to your clients so they can actually improve their business operations. Towards the end of this, when we talk about sustainability, we've been talking about this for years. It's not about virtue. It is about value. It's all about value. What value does it create on your bottom line? And if it does not create value, then it's just a virtue. And as we know, I already mentioned that before, political narrative based on virtues, protecting the vested interest of the political elites around the world and the economic elites that are dominating, especially the energy space, is actually creating something that, we don't want to fight a virtue fight, we want to fight a value fight. And the value fight is about how companies transform business to create value for shareholders, employees, customers, and clients, and how that transforms into profits going forward. It sounds simple, it is simple, but of course the underlying force looks completely different. And this is the reason why I would like to talk to you about the results. And now I'm going to take you towards results and what outcomes that are actually created by sustainable profits, or what outcomes are created by companies that are actually working with this, and also, putting a lot of resources and energy into this. There is something that I really would like to share, and this is the sort of a view of the financial industry. I think generally, I'm not representing all of them, but I've been there for a very long time. And, looking at sustainability performance of the company, it's so interesting to see the way how companies are actually communicating results. To be honest, not many ways to compare these results, but they are not really communicating these results on the product and service level. They are communicating to us how prudent their business model is, how they are securing their supply chain, how they are treating the employees in terms of the KPIs they are set, what kind of emissions are decreasing on the corporate level, not on a product and service level. Remember one thing. When you're out there and when you are contemplating, sometimes maybe choosing to buy a product or service that is more sustainable than the comparable one, you really want to understand. You're not reading a sustainability report. You're actually not reading the reviews. You're actually looking at the product. You're trying to understand why you should buy this product, why you should pay this money for this product and service, given you have a sustainability preference. Now, communication that companies are using today for us and for the public in general is extremely limited. People in general have a very limited knowledge about why they should buy sustainable products and how they can compare these products with other products that are less sustainable or more sustainable. So reference points they have are quite narrow. And what is also interesting, I've done a research recently in both Swedish, Swiss market and Italian market, looking at the way how companies are getting paid by financial markets for sustainability work they have done, based on communication they do to the financial markets. The interesting part is 97% of the companies on the Swedish stock market, 60 largest companies, 97% are not getting a penny from financial market for sustainability they do. And when I talk to them, which I did, they really don't understand how financial market today is not paying premium for companies that are performing better than their peers on sustainability. And the short answer from financial market for that is that we don't understand how you make money on sustainability. As long as we don't do that, your virtue is very nice to have, but we are not really going to pay for this. This needs to change. And I think results, and you can see these results around the world from the companies and sectors where this is a very tangible thing. So if we take the energy investments, if we take the investments in cooling systems, if we take the mining industry, there are so many interesting insights, of course driven by artificial intelligence, but actually also driven by the fact that our dependency, or I would say to a certain extent even addiction to fossil fuels, is slowly but surely shifting around the world. China being one example, Europe being a second example. Of course, American and US market looks a bit different, but given the fact that geopolitics is changing very rapidly, it's quite obvious that this heavy dependency on fossil fuels, oil and gas, is also driving countries to the sort of a brink of understanding, truly understanding, that the diversification of renewable energy is the big thing going forward. Has nothing to do with the virtue of being sustainable, good corporate citizen. It's about creating resilience for your business, for your country going forward. So renewable energy investments, just to give you an example, S&P 500, oil and gas indices, benchmark used basically to compare investments, compared to investments in renewable energy over the last couple of years, guess who's winning? Renewable energy, I think it's sort of outperforming by 45% S&P oil and gas index. And this is something that you will see going forward. Of course, again, driver is artificial intelligence, but the driver is also something else. It is resilience, it is safety and security, and it's also, I think, genuine need from the people to improve their quality of life. And you're not improving that with the coal power plants, with more oil and gas extraction. You're improving it with other sources of energy going forward. You know, renewable, different kinds of renewable fusion, nuclear to a certain extent. And let me give you a sort of a deep dive on nuclear, which is very interesting. And I find it so interesting from an investment point of view because there's basically one country in the world that is developing rapidly a nuclear power plants, and it's China. China is also one of the countries that is currently getting more energy from renewable resources than from conventional energy resources. And it's also given the fact that they are doing the nuclear sort of investments right now at the pace that we have never seen before. It's going to secure their independence from fossil sources of energy, which are sort of tackling or hampering the economy right now. Given the current context where the China and Southeast Asia, including Japan, are operating, where the dependency on fossil fuels from the Gulf countries goes up to 90%, it clearly indicates that there is something here that these countries are doing to make their countries, their economies more resilient going forward. That has nothing to do with virtue about not liking or liking fossil fuels. It's all about trying to understand how you can be resilient over time, continue growing your economy, growing your business, but doing that in a sustainable way which benefits the people, the country, economy, and the companies. Thank you for showing interest in sustainable profits, and please remember to subscribe. This will make the channel excel. And next time, I will take you through a very interesting topic, a very popular hot topic around the world, artificial intelligence and planetary boundaries. And in that particular piece, we will talk about the impact on NVIDIA and also what NVIDIA sustainability performance actually looks like and how is that combined with profits and sustainability. Welcome.